Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready for tips, tricks, and trends to elevate your knowledge and business to the next level.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. I'm your host, Zach. Today's show, we have got Mr. Jacob with Sivam, North America, and Brian with Focal Finishes out of Illinois. What is going on, guys?
Hey, how are you, Zach?
Doing great, Brian.
Doing great, Zach. Thanks for having us.
Welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Is this your first three-way?
This is the first three-way. As awkward as that just sounded.
There you go.
Leave it to Brian. Just throw it in there, man. Let's just start it off weird. I was actually talking to Pete with Ravago earlier today, and he wants to do almost like a panel, and he's got some chemists and stuff that he wants to from different resin suppliers to get on and kind of do like a in-depth how PUDs work episode for people that want to do that. So yeah, I think we're going to get that arranged. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
It sounds chaotic.
It'll probably get real nerdy real fast, but that's okay. All right. Well, let's just kick it off pretty easy. Let's start with you, Jacob. What's your story? How did you get into coatings? And then how did that put you with Sivam North America?
I started through my family's business. I'm sure a lot of people know me, but I'm a third generation finisher / woodworker, although I'm more of a finisher than woodworker. My grandfather back in Poland I had a shop building high-end furniture and finishing everything in paraffinic polyester. Then later on, my father and my uncle have taken over the business once he passed away, which was exactly a month before I was born.
Wow.
And they continued the business. That wasn't really their intent to go into the business, but they were sort of forced into it, and that's how it remained. Years later, in the 90s, late 80s for my uncle and the early 90s for my dad, they both immigrated to US, to Chicago, where they worked for different companies, but eventually sort of reestablished the business there in Chicago. And I was just finishing high school, and I actually was going to school to American Academy of Art for graphic design. So I would work for my dad during the day, and at night I went to school. And, I started as a helper, just kind of an angsty teenager, first sweeping and helping, then graduated to prep sanding. Later on, I gained the privilege of doing scuff sanding. And one day, our finisher didn't show up. I think he had some problems with alcohol, and so he wasn't showing up.
Imagine that.
And my dad. My dad came to me and said, "Hey, here's a spray gun. You're going to be spraying some nitrocellulose primer." And that's how I began. I started doing that, and I had no clue what I was doing. And this is where I met a gentleman named Ron Bryce, who became my mentor for many years to come, and even now, even though he's retired. But he was our sales rep, and he would come in, and I had all these questions for him because we ran into issues. And he always had an answer. And I started sort of, I don't know if I'm enjoying, but it was interesting. I wanted to learn. I wanted to get better at what I was doing. So over the years, I've worked with him and learned quite a bit. We changed the products we were using. We went from nitrocellulose lacquers to conversion varnish. And I think in 2008, when we were a little bit slow, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I know you mix your own colors. Would you like to come and maybe work for us and do formulations to color matching?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" So I did that for about 6 months, working for my dad and working for the distributor at the same time. This is where I met people from M.O. Campbell at the time. That was the product we used. That was the product the company sold, and they were starting a new program at Worst Bear Supply in Chicago, and asked me to sort of help them set up. I did that. I went and I was mixing colors there for quite a while. They hired some kind of a sales rep, but he wasn't really doing well. So they proposed that I go into technical sales because they sort of recognized my technical knowledge. And I said, absolutely not. I don't want to deal with people. I just want to be in a spray room or mixing colors and leave me alone. I refuse. But they put some pressure on me, and eventually I did try it, and it went pretty good. So I did that for a bit, and then I was approached by an investor who proposed that I leave this job, which I thought was a pinnacle of, my career. I will never do anything better than this. So it was a big risk, but this person believed in Italian coatings being the next big thing, and that we should open a company selling polyurethanes and acrylics. Water-based wasn't as big back then, or we knew there was access to it. So we started searching. We reached out to a little unknown company at the time, Camaraderie. And they surprisingly took the bait. They came out, they met us. We were really nobodies, and gave us the line. I ended up going to Italy and getting trained at Milesi IBM Chemicals, which is also Ilva, and came back and we started importing product. When we did that, we were advised that by somebody that Milesi has put us in touch with. That was Robert Bine, who is now with Circa, but back in the day he was the owner of Color Spec Coatings, another importer of Milesi, and also the distributor of Gemini, that we should take on an acid cure line as well, because we won't be able to survive. So this is how we got in touch with Gemini, and now we became the distributor of Milesi and Gemini for Chicago and area. Later on, as things have shifted and Gemini partnered up with Circa, we also brought in the Circa product as well. I went to Italy again, got trained at the Circa facility, and we were selling Milesi, Circa, and Gemini. We were fairly successful. I did that for, I think, 4.5 years. And Milesi realized that, hey, we will establish a subsidiary in North America, and somebody knocked on my door, and then here he was representing Milesi North America, and we worked with them for a while, but eventually they offered me a job working directly for them, covering Midwest and Ontario, part of Canada. So I took that job. I sold my share of the company to my silent business partner, and went to work for Milesi, now together with Ron Bryce again, who was my mentor. So I really enjoyed that. Eventually he retired, and I took over the rest of North America from Mississippi going west. So I was Midwest, but also covering the West Coast and West Coast of Canada, and everything in between. So, as a technical sales manager, I did this for about another 5 years. And this is when Sivam reached out to me through some contacts that common contacts that we had at IBM Chemicals. This industry is very incestuous, I always say. So everybody knows everyone, and everybody's worked with someone at one point or another.
Yeah.
Again, while I was at Milesi, I thought it was a pinnacle of my career, and this is where we will never do any better than that. But eventually, after 6 months of negotiations, I realized, hey, this might be a good opportunity for me to start something new from scratch and have more control and be able to react faster. So I eventually took the position as the sales director for North America for Sivam. And this is sort of my story. I always say that I've been on each side of this industry. I've been as a finisher, finishing manager, mixing colors, tint specialist, technical sales for a distributor. Then I was the distributor, and then working directly for a manufacturer. So I like to think that I sort of understand the needs of people within this industry on every side, and hopefully that's still true.
Yeah, when it's not ever changing. Yeah, it's always
Yeah.
floating one way or the other. You just never know. But yeah,
Sure is.
so that puts you at Sivam. What about you, Brian? Tell us how you ended up at Focal Finishes. I kind of was reading a little bit about it online, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah, no problem. So my father was a hospital painter. I guess we can go back. If Jacob's going to go back that far, I'm going to go back that far. I was studying music in college, but painting living rooms on the weekends with my father. He was a hospital painter that would get side jobs. So wall painter, just going into homes. He would get side jobs with doctors' houses and whatnot, and we would go paint them. So did that to get through college. Graduated trying to find a job in music, specifically music engineering, so recording studios. And that was the Napster days where everybody had to work for free because there was no money in the industry. So I continued to paint living rooms and dining rooms and stuff like that to get by. And at some point I said, all right, forget the music thing. Let's just keep this paint business thing going. So ran a paint company, got hooked up with a company that sent me coast to coast painting. And what's interesting about that is we mainly worked in malls, and one of our big accounts was Abercrombie and Fitch. And one of my main rollouts, if you will, were refinishing all the tables. So we would have to do on-demand stain matching and work with fast dry clear coats and whatnot. And that's kind of my first adventure in finishing. And and along the way, because I kind of became the wood finishing guy, I kept getting assigned more projects doing that. And then eventually we had kids. I couldn't travel the way I was anymore. So I settled down and got hooked up with a local distributor here in Chicago that had a wood coatings division. And Jacob was my competitor the whole way along. So we used to battle out here in the streets of Chicago.
A friendly competitor.
Oh, very friendly. Yeah. Keep your enemies closer, right?
Exactly.
But no, it was great though, because, we kind of shared the IVM family. I was on the Ova side. He was on the Malaysia side. So we would help each other out actually, even though we were kind of visiting the same accounts. And then he progressed in his career with Malaysia and, kept doing this, but these accounts in Chicago, I really got introduced in automation, primarily with Scheffler lines, and I got pretty close with that Scheffler team. And throughout the whole experience, I found a big need where machine manufacturer promises the world, you can produce this many parts in this shift, and never communicating with the coatings guy. And then 2 weeks before all the equipment shows up, well, let's call our coatings guy now. And now the coatings guy's got to make miracles happen to meet the demand that the equipment guy put forward. So I kind of identified right then and there that there's a need here. If we can get in at the ground zero and everybody get on the same page, and the beautiful thing is when you're waiting for all this equipment to come over from Italy, from Scheffler, we could be doing a lot of homework. So doing, color formulation, any adjustments we need to do formulation-wise to really dial it in for those systems, get it all set, get it tested, get it down to the lab, get it ready to go, so that when we commission those lines, we're ready to run, not walk. And under the former distributor I was working with, they were a paint store, and it wasn't a perfect match, and so we decided to jump right into the waters, and we started Focal Finishes. My Kevin Moore's my business partner. Him and I went out and he's been in the Chicago area selling coatings for 30 years. And we've been doing it for about 2 years now. And so far the formula has proven itself very well. I mean, this pairing up equipment with coatings has been a winning formula.
Excellent. Yeah, I could definitely, that's always been a big hole when you go into OEMs and there's saying, "Oh yeah, a stufflet guy came in here and said I can, finish 200 pieces in an 8-hour shift." And you're like, wait. So I mean, that's a great combination. I mean, to have those married up.
So Brian and I, as Brian mentioned, we were sort of competing against each other, although in a way representing the same company in the market. And we've had various times where we met even for lunch just to discuss things and kind of go over different approaches. And I always, right now it's maybe changing because we have such an influx of Italian companies and everybody's selling some kind of polyurethane or water-based line. But for years, I always felt that Brian was one of the only other few people that fully understood the capabilities of what these products or these companies manufacture, and had the good approach, the full approach of embracing the tinting system, proprietary tinting system, or the very unique stain systems that Italians offered. And so when I started working with Sivam, and I knew that him and Kevin have left their positions with the Chicago distributor, and were looking at setting something up, I thought it was a great opportunity for us to partner up and work with somebody that embraced what we were trying to do. And I think so far we have done very well. And on top of this, Brian's very knowledgeable with the equipment and products such as UV curable coatings. So I'm happy to be.
I was going to say, you guys Sivam carries water-based UVs, right?
We do. Although it is definitely difficult to break into the market, especially when you're working through distribution, because usually when you look at UV, it's a lot of times it's a direct business, and we are just not set up already for direct business at this moment. But partnering up with somebody such as Brian, who has the knowledge, knows the culture of these companies, of these Italian companies, but also has the context and good experience with UV, was just a perfect concept that has worked out very well for us.
It's interesting because to have an Italian company willing to partner up with a startup, we weren't even a player. We didn't exist before this. The timing of Jacob moving over to Sivam and us having that opportunity, I'm very thankful that Sivam trusted us to do it. So as a result, we're very, very dedicated to them. I mean, we carry Envirolac as well, but we're very slimline in product offering. We're focused on bringing the technologies that kind of expand beyond just what the normal, polyurethane and acrylic European coatings that are already here on the market. We're dabbling with some glass coatings, some of the metal coatings right now. I'm learning every day, just having that direct link to the chemist out in Italy has been fascinating. So it's fun. I'm having a blast. That's the best part. We're having a blast. That's all that matters.
Well, I was talking about this earlier, and you guys are perfect example when we start talking about. I was talking to Robert Chicory, and then I was talking to Peter the other day about relationships. Like this business, all businesses are about relationships, but there's something about this coating business where relationships are at the center of everything.
It's like afternoon soap opera. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows what everybody's doing.
Exactly.
You might as well just jump on the bandwagon and throw all your shyness away.
That's what I'm saying. I always say it's a black hole. Once you get into this world, forget it. You're not getting out. It's over. I thought I was going to leave when I sold my business, and 4 years later, now I'm doing a podcast about the business. You just can't get out of it. So let's do a real quick recap so our community here can understand Sivam. I know you're out of Toronto, and that's Vancouver.
Based in Vancouver, even though we've mentioned Chicago for most of this podcast, so far. couple years ago, I moved up to Vancouver, Canada, from where I sort of direct the entire North American market. Our company, Sivam, is based right outside of Milan. That's where we manufacture all our products. That's where they come from. Um, the company itself, we're actually celebrating our 75th anniversary. We were established in 1949, right after World War II, and along with other major Italian players. If you look at, most of them, they're somewhere like late 40s is when they were established.
That's what I found astonishing was they're one of the OGs. I had no idea before we partnered up. They're one of the oldest. Yeah.
Now that you say that, Jacob, I start thinking about all the other Italian guys, and they're all like in the 40s.
Yeah, 48, 47, 49. Yeah. There's a few. I think ICA was established a little bit later, and possibly Renner, but I'm not even quite sure, so don't quote me on this. But I know, the IVM chemical, like the Ilva and Molesis, Ecro, they're all established around the same time, which in itself is an interesting fact. I did ask this question to the owners of Sivam, is how come your grandfather established this company? What is it that made all of you guys go all of a sudden, hey, we're gonna produce coatings? And if I understood correctly, it was something to do with World War II and a lot of coatings prior to that being produced in Germany. And now, because of the geopolitical, or however you want to call it, situation in Europe, that wasn't feasible enough or anymore, and a lot of the knowledge was sort of migrated to the northern Italian market, and that's where they all originated and started. With the sort of lack of solutions, they started coming up with their own solutions, and this is where it came from my very simple understanding of it.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because it's like they all moved to one area. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't been over there, but just about everybody's around the Bologna area.
So there's the Bologna area. I think that's Renner and ICA, if I'm correct. And then north of that, which is Milan area, we have another big cluster. So you have the IDM. You'll have, I think, Ecro is somewhere in between Bologna and Milan, and there's Sivam and Alcea and you know what, and various other companies that we haven't heard of, but are coming.
Well, I mean, everything I've read, and I do a lot of research, the U.S. coatings market is just exploding. It's where everybody is wanting to come because there's just so much potential. And, frankly, there's just so much money here that a lot of these guys are wanting to come over.
I think a lot of finishers are open to moving on from acid cure. Is really the bottom line of it. That's the big thing, the formaldehyde.
Well, I think, geographically, we, North America, Canada, the second largest country in the world, and then U.S. itself, a very big country. That's a huge space compared to the European market or continent. We're just as big, if not bigger, probably bigger, much bigger geographically. So there's a lot of space. There's a lot of money. The European market is shrinking. So yes, everybody has turned their attention to North America, where they can probably make slightly bigger margins. It's an established market. And on top of this, there is a paradigm shift in the approach of the finishers. And I would like to think, and maybe take credit for all of us, changing and shifting this, because I remember, starting to sell these products 10 or 12 years ago, there were pockets of areas where it was a little bit easier, or more progressive, or more open to it. Chicago was one of them. I know there was a lot of immigrants from Poland and other countries in Europe, which already had exposure to these types of products, and have this mentality of, European is better, because that's how they were raised. And so they were a little bit more open to it. But I remember going to shops and talking about polyurethanes and, rambling off all these advantages. And they just looked at me like, oh, so what? We don't really care. We've been using what we're using. It's good, It ain't broken, why fix it? Yeah. And it's working. But then, it's like planting seeds. I remember then 5 years later, somebody would call me and say, "Hey, remember when you were here 5 years ago? I would like you to come back and talk to me about these products because now all my competitors around me are using it and we're kind of falling behind." So it has been shifting, and especially now, and the water-based quotation mark revolution and everything else, it's really taking off. And the last 2 years, Vegas and Atlanta show, we noticed that there were more European or specifically Italian manufacturers there for coatings than domestic ones. And from what I know, there will be even more this year, and it will, there will be companies that we have never heard of. I mean, some of these companies were privy to, myself, with some kind of insight into the Italian market through my contacts and our company, but there are companies, now out of Spain and everywhere else coming into this market, and it will get crowded. And I mean, when I speak to Italians, they say, "You think that your market is oversaturated? You have no idea what's coming. It's really going to get competitive."
It's a smaller market over there, and they're all successful over there. So it's only can assume that they're coming this way. Yeah, I was talking to IWF, what was her name? I just brain farted on her name, but she was telling me that the amount of international coatings companies, it's rivaling the equipment guys. Like it's almost going to be an even split. There's just so many manufacturers.
Yes, and just to go off on a little tangent, the discussions that we have a lot of times is, it's shifting from us working for or with Italian companies selling against asset cure technology, which was sort of easy because we had all these advantages. It is now shifting to, hey, it's not enough that you're an Italian manufacturer with this technology and access to these chemistries. Now we are starting to compete against other Italian companies. What makes you different? Why Sivam over this, or why this over that? So I think that's also changing. And then we have also some domestic companies, especially and with water-based urethanes and acrylics. Still, it seems that we don't have good competitors, but we are starting to see some good competitors here in North America in regards to water-based. So things are definitely changing furtherly than what they have been. We've seen the big influx of European companies. Now we're all competing against each other, and now the domestic manufacturers are starting to realize, hey, we're losing market. We need to do something about it. So,
what's interesting to me is these guys, they're just no one here within the U.S. I'll say a domestic manufacturer. They still seem to be shying away from. Like for me, and I know you guys do it as well. I love water-based coatings. They're great. They have an excellent place in the market. But my love is solvent 2K. I mean, solvent-based 2K polyurethanes. I'm sorry, they're amazing. And I mean, I have nothing against water-based. It's great, but I cut my teeth when I got into polyurethanes on solvent. I got deep into the circle world. Tried the water-based. I just love the solvent 2K polys, but we don't even have any domestic guys. You've got water-based domestic manufacturers, and I know there's not a ton of research going into solvent 2K, but it just seems to me that somebody within a domestic carrier, I don't know if the technology is that much more difficult, but you just don't see any of your domestic guys trying to go into the polyurethane world.
Well, I think we've seen them try and go. Emil Campbell is probably a good example, and I might be maybe I'm not privy to some of the things that go on with Emil Campbell or Sherwin-Williams or any other manufacturers. But from what I understand, I'm just speaking from my experience and what I have seen, what I have heard. The people I talked to, there was attempts at the Polarium, Coda. For some reasons, those products just seem not of the same quality.
Lackluster.
Yes, and at times even giving bad name to let's say acrylic polyurethanes or polyurethanes in general. So I don't know if it's the technology. I know that there are certain companies that were acquired by Sherwin-Williams, such as Cerlac at the time, and brought in here with the same formulations, with everything, and just moving that production with, I guess different quality raw materials, maybe different culture of manufacturing, different standards, has completely shifted the quality of the product, and that program failed. And now Sherwin-Williams is back to bringing products made by Cerelec in Italy. So there is something there. I don't fully understand what it is.
Well, I mean, you also think of all the resin manufacturers out in Europe when it really boils down to an access to that. Whereas, here in the States, in our industry, it's not as prevalent.
I think it's important to understand too that, while we were focused here in North America on acid cure products, that release formaldehyde, that was regulated out of use in Europe a long time ago. That's now 20, 30 years at least. So they've been focused on these products, on polyurethanes and then acrylics and water-based for a much longer than what we have been doing here, because we were okay with what we were using.
Or some of the large companies just have very big pockets and won't let the technology change.
Well, yes, and then there's always some kind of politics and influence, and some kind
Maybe you should touch on, I think a lot of people don't understand how, at least in Italy, how they distribute. They have the warehouses everywhere, but it's a lot of end user. I mean, they're right there. It's in their backyard. They don't go through distribution as much. And as a result, you get a lot of feedback from the, am I wrong to say that, Jacob?
No, that's right.
That's a good point. I didn't know that.
So they get the direct feedback back from the customer that just keeps evolving over time. That increases the quality of the stability of their products. And that's the other thing. I mean, there's a lot of shipping out of Europe to a bunch of different climates, That's why I always say when you look at an Italian safety or TDS sheet, when it says 8-hour pot life, well, they're selling to Russia and they're selling to, Jamaica. That's a bunch of different climates. So they kind of just err on the side of conservatism. You just got to try it out for yourself to figure out what's best for you.
And I was going to say, that also, what Brian was saying, it also results in a vast offering from each one of those companies, thousands of formulations, because of their service centers, which are the warehouses that are located throughout, let's say, the country of Italy, where they service directly to the end user, and typically larger end user and automated end user. There is feedback, and they specialize these products to hit a certain, a performance level. So if you look really, what we bring into North America from any of these companies is just the tip of an iceberg, because if you look at the whole portfolio of each one of these companies, it's thousands of formulations, and some of these formulations will vary very slightly just to address one manufacturer's need. So that's an interesting concept in its own, because Italians coming to our market wanting to sell products that make great products. They don't understand North American market. This is why they hire people such as ourselves, and they're kind of throw at you like, "Hey, here it is. What do you think?" And we kind of have to understand their culture and understand the North American market and the user, and use our expertise to say, let's take this, Americanize it, and it should work here. And hopefully we're successful at it.
It is very different markets. And I don't know this to be fact. I mean, I'm curious to get your thought on that. A reason that the European guys have been able, manufacturers, like Brian was saying, they're agile. You get feedback constantly, but most of those guys over there still are doing smaller batch manufacturing. They're not doing the 4, 6, 8,000 gallons this batch is like some of your domestic guys are. Is that still the case?
Well, yeah, in some cases. I mean, IBM is a big company that manufactures big batches, but yes, it's because each location of their service center or customers are so very specialized in what they are doing and have such a very specialized product for that application. So everything's sort of made to order. When you're looking at manufacturing, you have to consider things such as, raw materials, purchasing raw materials and not sitting on this material, having enough to produce, but not having the overflow, so you're not losing money, and being agile enough to react. But when you're looking at, let's say, domestic manufacturers, where here in North America, where things are very simplified, and let's say you have, your big boys, the Sherwin-Williams or the Axaltas or AkzoNobel, they produce, let's say, this type of conversion varnish, and 90% of the country uses that, and they use it for pretty much everything. So they can produce bigger
They
batches
can produce
because
it
they
in
know this
larger
is
batches. Yeah.
kind of something that will sell no matter what, and it's not a specialized product.
That's why everything's just all the products are referred to by code. I mean, it's just what it was. It doesn't have a fancy name. I will say I like the direction that the Sivam team is approaching, where we're putting these products into buckets: heritage, environment for the waterborne, performance for acrylics. It's going to make it a little bit easier for this market. But we all live and die by the code, the product code, and whereas, in the U.S. manufacturers is usually has a fancy name.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I have had a couple finishers on that do cabinet refinishing and new. And that's one thing they say they don't like about the Italian coatings is the coating system. So trying to explain to them, but like, this is where I think this podcast is going to help a lot of these guys because they listen to this episode and they get an idea of why these codes, because they're used to your Exaltas and your Axos and Geminis making one CV and one precat. Well, they don't do that over there.
You could take like one waterborne product, we bring in the 65 series, but there's 6 others that we could bring in. Jacob and I strategically decided, this makes the most sense for this market, but we have other options if we really want to.
Yeah, so. Yeah, and I spent quite a bit of time now. I always joke that I've become more of a glorified accountant now than a finisher because I sit in front of the computer if I'm not going over margins or numbers or things of that nature. I'm analyzing products, creating spreadsheets and charts on different performance levels and how this will play out. So it's maybe an analyst. I don't know. I don't know what to call myself anymore.
We were talking about that before we recorded. That's one of the things that I'm glad I don't have to mess with anymore. You get into the manufacturing side to help train people, and you get into that director level, and you're looking at margin, looking at top line, looking at net, and well, can we do this? Can we do that? It's fun, but it's a different type of fun.
Yeah, it has, it was something that I was skeptical about, or maybe not concerned, but a little nervous about because, I was always kind of the hands-on guy and very artistic. I wanted to do cool things and cool effects and kind of that's my world. But I'm also passionate about understanding our business and the world that we sort of revolve in. And this has sort of allowed me to gain some insight on why companies do certain things and sort of another point of view onto the business. So I look at this as enriching my knowledge. Maybe not as cool and exciting, not something I can post on, Instagram, like, hey, look at the spreadsheets I'm doing, versus a cool sample. But I feel like I'm progressing and understanding more, and this is my goal and makes me feel good about myself. But you know what? There's something I wanted to mention, talking about the Italian market and the North American market and the names. It made me think of just a general industry and how it's perceived. Things such as social media, like the Instagrams or other avenues. It is very strange to Italians, this whole movement and how it all became so social media centralized, and we're having podcasts and interviews. They don't do that there. Everything's much more industrial. And, if we're talking about running Instagram or any other social media outlet, it's kind of more being done here and then sort of, broadcasted to the world, because in Italy, it's not common for a manufacturer to come in and start taking pictures or videos of what they're doing. They're very protective of it, and it's kind of unheard of. It's more of an American cultural thing that we're doing all those things, and it's Italians are sort of intrigued by it, and they see that it has its effect here in this North American market, but it's such a completely different world there. It's industrial. It's product codes, not names. No stories about how we're finishing this or that. It's more of an American thing, which is
I've noticed that the European companies, they they stay off social media. They don't, hardly any of them have a presence. And that's always intrigued me. I've talked to Joey about that before, and I'm just like, I just don't understand it. And then Joey, and I'm going to get him on another one, but Harrison.
Joey Harrison? Yeah, my good buddy.
Yeah. And so I was talking to him about it, and he was like, same thing as you. He was like, it's a cultural thing. They think that we're weird posting pictures of drying paint. They're like, who the hell wants to see that? Yeah, but we do. We love it. I mean, it has been highly successful for a lot of companies because, and what I always tell people is, you know, I'm 41. So mine's like the last generation, but everyone below my generation and younger, we're visual. We want to see it. We don't want you to tell us, okay, great, it looks pretty and feels good. I want to see it. And it's just one of the easiest platforms to let everyone see the work and see what other people are doing, so they have confidence that it's going to be and turn out good.
It is. It makes sense. It's you know, it allows you to connect, and sometimes it can be too much too. You know, it's hard to keep up. But there are results, and I think the Italians are intrigued and are trying to understand it and sort of allow us to do it. And you know, we're trying to adapt their products here in North America. They're trying to adapt to our mentality and understand it and use it to obviously monetize it.
Yeah, especially in the refinishing world. That's foreign to the manufacturers in Europe.
Yes. I've noticed that the refinishing world is just they don't even talk about it. It doesn't exist over there.
I mean, their products lend themselves very, very well, but when you call them and tell them what you're trying to do, they're like, what are you doing?
Why?
I can't believe you're trying that.
we're cowboying it up.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
We're Americanizing this stuff. So, I mean, you guys are on the manufacturing side. Are you guys seeing any new technology or any new finishes, I mean, that are coming out as far as any specialty stuff or just general acrylics and PUDs?
You know, I think that new technologies are such technologies as excimer, which is probably Brian can explain it better, but it's a laser cured UV type of coating that changes the structure of the coating or itself has changed as it cures, but that's very rare, and I think there may be 5 or 6, and expensive and complex, that there may be 5 or 6 sites worldwide that are using this technology. You know,
did you say laser cured?
Brian, you can probably explain this better.
It's like a nitrogen radiation laser that basically makes ultra matte, like the flattest flat, almost like a soft touch UV cure. The way it works, really cool. But
that sounds awesome.
It is. I put it in the bucket of like powder coating wood. You know, it's very nichey. You know, where you don't have variation in color options and stuff like that. But real popular for guys that are trying to mimic like the midnight blacks and that sort of thing, where you have no reflection at all off the coating.
But it's not something that you'll see your average finisher playing with anytime soon. So
it's a very expensive oven to do that one.
I would say that water-based are definitely becoming more popular, and we know that there is a slow shift towards the non-isocyanate crossovers, if you want to call it that way, an answer to urethanes and acrylics and water-based 2K products without using isocyanate or using, let's say, polyethylene crosslinker that's non-toxic. I think that's what we will see more of in the next few upcoming years.
Are those big in Europe, or is that more of it seems like it's an American thing?
No, it's not necessarily an American thing. It's something that people are curious about, and research has to be done. Each company, even though the sales in this type of products might not really be justified, as a company, as any company, you have to stay relevant. So if somebody else has one, you sort of flexing your muscles and saying, "Hey, we have this technology as well," just to say that we do, to say that we have the newest technology, but really the sales of these types of products don't translate into much. So there might be a lot of talk and hype about it, but really what people are still using from companies such as ours is two-component polyurethanes and acrylics and solvent, and then water-based, 1K and 2K. So we can talk about all these exciting things, but reality is different.
I could see a lot of, going back to pairing the equipment up with the coatings. We're focused on solutions for catalytic IR. That's kind of taken over the green fast cures and the sunspots and that sort of thing. And then surprisingly, more and more people are dabbling with UV. UV is nothing crazy. It's still paint. It just dries a different way, So, and there's things the things that you have to explain in UV. It's not like there's, if you do 100% solids, you can cure it right away. But for most people, you still have to wait for that flash off time. So it doesn't increase your production that much. It's just processing afterwards. But having that conversation of what we can do and develop it that much more, custom to whatever that end user is unique. I think that's the big thing, is just dialing in systems that work for that end user for whatever they need to do.
They understand is the big one, because I've noticed a lot of people, manufacturers, when in my former life, that would want to go UV, and then you start explaining and ask them, what are you doing? Is everything one color, or do you have 8 color changes? Like, if you got 8 color changes, UV's it's not the monster for you. Maybe on a primer if it's online, but top coat, no. And I think a lot of people just see it's the new and the greatest, and we got to try it. But not always. You just got to find the system that works for you and stick with it. I think that's the one. I had Jim on the other day, and that was Jim Kerrigan. We were talking, and he was just, his advice was just find a system and stick to it. Damn it. Quit jumping around every single job that you do.
Well, I think it depends also. If you're a manufacturer and you manufacture a certain thing, yes, find a system that works for you and do it. If you're a high-end millwork shop that does very custom projects that, money is no object, they can sort of vary the approach on and this is where we were talking earlier about, we're both solvent guys versus water, but in this case, I believe that all those products are sort of a certain tool in your range that you can implement for a specific reason. I will use a water-based, even though I love solvent, I will use water for certain things where solvent will just not cut it. But then in other ways, I'll use anything from polyester to acrylic to polyurethane and anything else in between to achieve a specific result. Is it the aesthetic? Is it the performance? That's where we consider those things, where 95% of the time you're considering, don't overcomplicate it. Complexity is not always good. If you don't need those performance levels, don't do it, because you will lose money by offering something that's unnecessary, but overcomplicating the process and inviting the opportunity for issues to arise. So,
yeah, I think one of my big ones that I used to always tell people is that just gets under my skin. I don't know why, but it does. When, as a distributor and a manufacturer, and also a distributor, you guys get it when they call, an end user calls and they're like, hey, I just bought your product and I'm painting the kitchen. And you're like, have you ever used it before? No, I figured I'd use it on this kitchen, and I just opened a can, and I'm going, why? Public service announcement. Don't do that. Test it first.
I've had people reaching out to me in the past to provide instructions how to open the can. I know this sounds crazy. It was a C-clamp can, a European can, and this lady was refinishing her kitchen, and she's seen it somewhere on the Facebook, some kind of a finishing or painting group, refinishing group, and she purchased the product and then reached out to us. She didn't know how to open the can, so I took it upon myself. I took pictures step by step. I made instructions. I sent it to her. We all laughed about it. But yes, I agree. Yeah, yeah, it happens.
Well, let's jump over to let's kind of jump into like the business side. Brian, with Focal, I know we kind of hit on it a little bit, but like, what would you say that sets Focal Finishes apart from your competitors that are out there?
I definitely think that pairing the equipment up with the coatings is a new frontier and very rare. I mean, even in our initial conversations with Sheffler, they were apprehensive. They like the machine guys to be the machine guys and not show loyalty to one specific coating. So in those negotiations, we said, listen, if a customer needs equipment, we will go in. If they're happy with their current provider, we are not going to step on their toes. We'll represent Sheffler and Sheffler only. And we've actually been in, I think, 2 different proposals that we actually had to do that. And we're playing ball. One of those proposals, it turns out, we showed enough expertise where they ended up switching over anyway. The other one, they're perfectly happy. And I think that's really what it comes down to, just the confidence. And I think for Kevin and I, we don't know all the answers, but we know who to call. And I think that's the humility you have to have in this industry. And I'm building, the whole mindset for every employee that we hire. Don't think you have to know the answers, especially in a stressful situation. It's going to happen. The products are going to do funny things, especially in the waterborne world.
Yeah, I read this book. I don't know if you guys have read it. It's called Who Not How, and great book. You don't have to know how to do everything. It actually is going to take more time. Find a who that can do it for you. Find a who knows the answer. Don't try to figure out how you can get it. Just changed my perspective on a lot of things with business and everything. Yeah.
And that, having conversations with you, and now I'm going to watch your the Bearded Finisher. I'm going to learn all sorts of new people I get to call after watching each episode. And that Rolodex is going to keep growing because that's the name of the game. You just got to, things happen. And I really do, not that, the Sheffler stuff is the Sheffler stuff, but also the fluid delivery, what you can do, using a Wagner Cobra pump versus a Kremlin 15-1, and how we can set that up to really get waterborne to lay down just like polyurethane and stuff like that I'm learning every day. I talk more equipment setup, so when you mentioned the person opening the can for the first time, believe it or not, I go more to, okay, what are you applying the coating with? Let's start there, and then it ends up being that makes life easier for them, just on the equipment side of things. So I think that for us, we haven't been perfect, but I think this is a winning model going forward, and just getting the concept of importing product from Italy has been quite the adventure, to say the least.
Do you guys stick within the Chicago area, or will you guys go and travel? If we've got
right now, we're distributing. We have a warehouse in Bensenville, Illinois. We're pretty much on the runway of O'Hare Airport, so we're nice, centrally located. So we do service the Chicago market. We're doing quite a bit of OEM work up in Wisconsin. So we've been going back and forth to Wisconsin, northern Indiana. We've got accounts in Michigan as well. So we kind of have the North Midwest kind of growing day by day. Our goal is to expand to other markets over time, and they will be strategically figured out with the cooperation of Sivam and as well as Sheffler. That makes sense, whatever markets they may be. But right now we're focused in this area.
Okay. That way, if we got people listening that want to reach out, that maybe you're looking to put a line in,
please do. And we ship everywhere. We've gotten pretty good at it. When we first started with Envirolac, we were the only Midwest distributor, so we had to learn very, very fast how to get cans of water-based paint all over. I mean, Texas. We were getting calls from California, so we've gotten pretty good at that. Set up some good logistic partners to get stuff everywhere. The trouble is, if you need hands-on, it's tricky for us to get there, but we can definitely get you the product.
Excellent. Well, let's kind of on the whole business side of it. I know I told you we'd get off on tangents and we'd disappear an hour real fast. What do you guys have advice wise? If we got, my whole goal for this show is to try to entice the younger generation coming out of high school, coming out of college, to make a career out of coatings, because there's a lot of people aging out. So advice, you guys have been doing it for a while. Someone wanting to come into either the distributor side or the manufacturing side. We'll start with you, Jacob. Like what advice would you have for somebody?
I think that in my experience, when I was younger, I wasn't really appreciating this business and what I was learning. For many years, I wished that I was doing something else. Only later in my career, I realized, and some people helped me realize this, hey, this is actually a skill and experience that you have learned that's more valuable than any type of school. And, for me, it was always the drive to be better at what I'm doing, whatever it might have been. And in this case was coatings. I always had this need, this ambition of, I want to be the best. I want to learn, never stop learning. And throughout my life, it happened a few times where I came to the point and I said to myself, wow, now I really understand things. And looking back, 3-4 years ago, I thought I did, but I really didn't. Now I really understand. And you know what? That keeps happening over and over and over. Like every few years, I come to this point. I'm like, wow, I really know my stuff now. A few years ago, I didn't. And then, a few years later, it happens again. It's kind of surprising. And so always learn, take any opportunity to learn. And, not everything you will get paid for, but you're sort of investing into your knowledge and career. There are many things that I do that just further me as an individual and my knowledge and will result later in life. And I think that's probably the advice I would give. There's another thing that I always think about is when I explain things to people, which I got pretty good at. I'll explain to them in theory, hey, this is what happens, this is why, and this is how this will work. But then I realize, I can tell you all of this. I can try to transfer all my knowledge to you, but really what it will take is actual experience. So I will help you along. I will give you this knowledge, but it won't really mean anything unless you go and do it over and over again and then fail.
And get smarter at it than I just gave you. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be my advice.
That's a good one. What about you, Brian?
Well, I think it's such a fascinating industry because there's a bazillion different directions you can go. There's the down. I mean, if you love the sanding part, you can get into the abrasives and really go down that rat hole. You can go down the coating side of it in the application. You can go into refinishing. If you want to go more into the sales side, you can go into distribution and a bunch of different products there. You can go into the chemistry. I mean, the chemistry alone is fascinating. That's your background. You gravitated towards that. And when you start learning the inner workings of how complex these chemicals are and to make them all work is fascinating.
And I've learned and I tell people, you don't have to go to college. There's a lot of chemists in this business that started where you or I did, or Jacob, and they just migrated to the bench and are amazing formulators. Never set foot in a college room lab to be a chemistry.
And then who knows, you start as a finisher and then you may gravitate towards the carpentry side of things. You're in the right place to learn that. And, we could talk about the machinery. You've got the automated machines, you've got the fluid delivery. The sky's the limit of which direction you want to take in this industry. And I think that's what I love the most about it.
Yeah. And I always tell people too, it's fun. It might not be as sexy as tech sales or medical sales, but you're also not going to be stressed, man. We're going to have fun. Jacob, we go to these shows, whether it's IWF or AWFS, and at the end of the night, you see a table over there in the corner of a bunch of guys just laughing and being obnoxious as shit. And it's usually all the coatings guys. We're all hanging out at one table, drinking and having fun. Yes. I mean, the camaraderie and the fact that, yeah, you can go anywhere, and it is a fun business to be in. Stress is going to happen, but I would say the least amount of stress that you're going to have is in this business. It's more fun than stress.
It's a great way of putting it. I couldn't agree more.
So my one question that I always ask every single person is not necessarily a got ya, but outside of coatings, outside of, this industry, what's something that a hobby or something that you think would catch us off guard, something interesting that might surprise us about both of you?
Oh, well, I could list at least a few. I'm definitely, I love art and design, but I think the one that would probably catch people off guard is I like video gaming, and I like growing things, plants, and arranging flowers. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll be a florist. I don't know. That's good. I'll open like a floral shop. I'll make arrangements when I retire. I don't know.
I'm not kidding. I've seen some of this stuff. It's pretty insane.
I would have never guessed you as a florist. That's a good one. What about you, Brian? Something that people wouldn't expect.
I play in a band. I don't know. And I like electric skateboards. I like riding electric skateboards.
Electric? You like there's no handle?
Yeah, here.
Oh, I'm too old for that. I need something to hang on to.
Yeah, it's got motors on it.
Oh.
You know what? I wouldn't mind doing that with you, Brian, because I've skateboarded for many years.
Yeah, it's fun.
When I was younger, so.
I have an electric bike, but I just feel like I'd kill myself on that thing.
I ride like an old man now, is what I tell my wife.
Just cruising.
Just cruising. I can see that being kind of fun. Well, that's awesome. Well, hey, guys, I just want to thank both of you guys. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming on. The insights, the knowledge was awesome. Last words of wisdom for the community out there. What do we got?
I got no wisdom.
You always have wisdom. What are you talking about?
Work hard, play hard.
There you go.
Don't be afraid to try, and if it doesn't work, don't be mad at the distributor.
Amen. If it doesn't work out, don't call with the hate.
There you go.
Oh man,
Zach, this is awesome, man. I'm so glad you started this. This is going to be great, man. People are
I'm excited. I'm liking it. I think everyone's going to have fun, and we get off, talk about random shit. I would say one of the craziest ones to date. Jim's got pretty funny. Jim Kerrigan at Jecco. He just mentioned, I'll give free advice, but he said one of his pet peeves is when people call him and ask him what tip size he's using. And I was like, you do realize now you're going to get like 1,000 DMs asking you what tip size you're using.
I'm going to send him in a minute.
he just went, shit. So socials, shoot out your socials so people can go follow you guys if they aren't already.
Okay. For me, it's We Are Sivam for Sivam, and Jacob Seraphin is my personal, which you'll have to find me.
Focalfinishes.com is the best place. And then, we are on the Instagram, and maybe you've given me motivation by the time this episode comes out. I'm actually pumping out some content because I am motivated by you now to do this. And, and likewise with LinkedIn. We don't post much, but we communicate a lot on LinkedIn. So you can always find me there and ask me questions anytime.
Excellent. If you guys aren't following them, go give them a follow. LinkedIn, Instagram, check them out. Again, Jacob, Brian, you guys are awesome. Thanks for coming on.
You're awesome. Thank you for having us, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bearded Finisher. We look forward to seeing you guys maybe on the next episode. Talk to you soon.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.